for me I have to have a list in order to get everybody's name, but my apologies for not being organized. But my intention is to welcome you all, and I have reached out personally to each one of you to be here, and especially all the ladies, the physicians, the gentlemen who are physicians here. Many of them could not join, as you know that I have a huge group that I mix up with, and they unfortunately missed it because it was weekday and 5 o'clock time was the decided time. But there will be several more opportunities in the future, and I must. But one person, very young gentleman that I want to introduce. He's like my nephew. I have held his hand, and he has held my finger to do everything. And even today, if he has to pick a flight to go to out of country, or if he has to have his contract read by somebody, he chooses me. And I'm honored, and he has 6 gold medals in his medicine, in his medical school, and several more in the United States. He's an interventional cardiologist, a young chap, Dr. Osman Khan.
And nice looking too.
And if you rise, please, I want to introduce you. Arufa was a patient in 30 years back in our clinic, and imagine she was how young she, and must be beautiful at that time as well, as she is now. But I proudly claim, with her permission, to disclose her age, and she's a scuba diver instructor at the age of 78.
All the mess that 2-legged people make all over the world. Throwing papers and everything into the ocean.
So, without delaying, I also want to mention that it's an honor for the first time, even though my home is not in the district lines for our honorable Congresswoman Fletcher. But I took the opportunity that many of you are the leaders of your own community and the neighborhood. And this is a word that we need to spread, and we need to increase the awareness that our Congresswoman Fletcher is doing a very important job. In the introduction, in the brief introduction, I will mention all of those things that briefly I've been sent to introduce her. But the main important thing is that she's representing women empowerment, the way I see it. So it is important that we introduce and encourage our women leaders, because that leadership, believe it or not, starts from home. So you could see that. You could see that, this lady was a leader in my home, and I was the eldest in the family. She raised me with all the ethics and everything that I've been exercising and practicing. So it is important for us to encourage other women as well who are in leadership. Thank you. Without further delay, I've never done this, but this is the first time I'm going to read the introduction. Normally I do it, all self-made, but today I'm going to present you Honorable Congresswoman Lizzie Fletcher. Thank you for coming. She was elected in 2018, unseating a 9-term incumbent and becoming the first Democrat Congresswoman in District 7 since George H.W. Bush held the seat. She successfully defended the seat in 2020 and against especially NRCC's best funded Republican challenger. A good and big round of applause on that. It is because it sums up 2 battles. The first battle that she had to begin with, winning for the first time, and then the second time. So this is why I had to request you guys to, give her a round of applause. Thank you so much. So before being elected, she spent more than a decade as a attorney at law in Houston. For the first time in the firm Vinson and Elkins, and then she became a leading and women partner in AZA. In Congress, that's very important. She sits on Energy and Commerce Committee, in addition to doing very important work on the subcommittees of, science, space, and technology, including healthcare. She's doing a very important and critical work over there, solving critical issues and beyond our knowledge and expertise. So she's exposed to the most important work for her district and for the nation as well at the same time. She has been a vocal advocate for infrastructure, transportation, and increasing access to healthcare. And that's where I'm going to interrupt for a second before I read the last small paragraph and introduce Pearl Warren. She is also a cancer survivor. She's a women leader in our business, and she has been vice president of operations. And she's so meticulous about her work that there's rarely a day that she leaves 7 or 8 o'clock in the night. Thank you for doing the hard work. So here comes a challenge that our Honorable Congresswoman Lizzie Fletcher faced. Last year, the 7th Congressional District was redrawn to encompass large portion of Fort Bend County. This is why we took the opportunity to invite her to this district, so that on social media, on news media, on print media, we have all three present today. And I request you guys to, encourage the communities that you are engaged with to get to know her. I'm willing to sponsor more events for her wherever they are needed. Unconditionally, we don't need anything in return from her, but I know that she's a credible, learning from Nancy Pelosi. I've personally learned that, she's a very, very credible, and especially seconded by, our Zaf Tahir, who introduced me to virtually with her, and then I started asking Richard. Where's Richard? Hey, Richard, can you rise, please? Richard is also our vice president, so he helped me, accomplish this project. Thank you, Richard. So we're very excited, and we want to encourage people to vote for her and organize team along with. One thing I've learned is I've known a lot of congressmen and women's staff, but far the best staff, and in very particular about emails, being very meticulous about, what we're going to speak over there, how many people are coming, who's coming, and I did not mind that at all, Aaron. That was an honor, because this is how we get to know each other. And I really appreciate your staff, yourself, and you, the gentleman is RJ. I'm dealing with RJ and AK today. So on the video gentleman. So again, summing up, this is all my request is to support her, and anything we could donate for her, not in my home, but if you want to do it right now, you can empty your pocket, but that's not what I'm asking. So we'll come to that point later. But just remember her, and we'll do the fundraisers as well in near future. But I would also request Lizzie Fletcher to please say a few words.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Dr. Chaudhry, for hosting me in your beautiful home. And thank you so much for introducing me to your mother and to all of these wonderful guests. I'm delighted at the opportunity to get to visit with you, to get to know you, and hopefully to get to serve you as your representative in Congress for a very long time. I am so grateful that you have invited so many distinguished guests. Of course, I'm delighted to see Commissioner Prestige, who was one of the first people that I was able to visit with as we found out about the new district, and I just feel so lucky to have gotten the chance to visit with him and to get to work with him and to work with so many of you, new friends and old friends that are here tonight. Representing Texas's 7th Congressional District is a privilege unlike any I have ever known. And as Dr. Chaudhry said, the district is changing a little bit. It happens every 10 years. There is a redistricting process after the census. Many of you already know this, but if you don't, they reapportion the number of congressional districts that every state gets based on population. And so Texas actually got 2 additional districts this year because our population has grown so much over the last decade. So there would automatically be some probably adjustments. What we saw the Texas legislature this year drew a new map that made significant changes in our area and in Austin and really across the state. And so for me, it's the first time that I have the privilege of representing folks in Fort Bend County and in Sugar Land, and I'm absolutely delighted. I've been in this office now I'm in my 2nd term, as you said, and it really has been an incredible opportunity to get to know better a place that I already know and love so deeply. I'm a native Houstonian. I was born here in Herman Hospital and grew up here, and I'm so proud of Houston. I grew up here in the 1970s and 80s, and there was this big campaign as we were facing this recession that some of you all will remember from the 80s, and there was this Houston Proud campaign. And I just internalized it, and I'm so proud of this community. And I tell my colleagues in Congress all the time, I feel like I have the privilege of representing the best district in the country because of the people who live here. This community is so welcoming, so diverse, so innovative and dynamic. And the greatest thing about this community, I think, is that we welcome people, whether they're coming from across the country or around the world, to be a part of what is really just a special place. A place where innovation and creativity and collaboration are the things that drive us. And that's what I said in my first campaign. Some of you may remember because you got bombarded with a lot of TV commercials back in 2018 and again in 2020. But my slogan was, and I made it up myself, we need a little more Houston in Washington, D.C., right? And I do think that's what we need. And the good thing is I can report to you that I think we can have it. It's been a really tough time in our politics. I think we all know that. People feel more divided, more polarized than ever. I don't think we need to be. But we have to elect people who are serious about making sure that everyone has their voice heard, that everyone has the ability to participate and the desire to participate, where you feel like your vote matters and makes a meaningful difference, where you feel like someone's going to listen to what you have to say. And as the representative for this district, it's such an incredible privilege to be able to do that. I get to meet with constituents on a variety of issues every single day. I get to learn about those issues through my committee assignments. And as Dr. Chaudhry said, I serve on the House Committee on Energy and Commerce, and I asked for that assignment, which I will say is kind of hard to get. But I asked for it because that committee does what we do. We do energy, and we do healthcare on that committee, and we do a whole lot of other things too. I also serve on the Consumer Protection Committee of that Energy and Commerce. I serve on the Communications and Technology, so pretty much anything on the internet falls under our jurisdiction. So we have this incredible jurisdiction over things happening in this country and a real ability to hear from people and then turn that into action. And that's what we need to see right now, because in addition to being a tough time in our politics, it's been a tough time in our lives. This pandemic is unlike anything any of us have ever lived through and hopefully ever will live through again. And it's been difficult on so many levels, in so many ways, whether you're trying to teach your kids and school them at home because school is closed, whether you're trying to manage your work and your family, whether you're going to the hospital and risking your own safety and your family's safety to treat patients with COVID. All of us have seen our lives just altered, and it's been difficult. And the challenges will continue. But I think that we have an opportunity to take from those challenges and really make incredible improvements, learning from those experiences in our community. And we've seen that in some of the work we've been able to do in Congress in terms of trying to think about how we move forward and how we build back differently and better. The infrastructure bill we just passed is something that I'm really excited about and doing a lot of different events around the community. We're going to help with flood mitigation in our community. We're going to help deal with transportation issues, money for roads and bridges, for transit, money for the Port of Houston, which is a huge economic driver for us, money for our airports, so that everyone who's coming to visit us or anywhere we want to go, we've got all of these great investments in our infrastructure. Some of the most important investments we can make in our people. So making sure that we're investing in education, making sure that we are focused on the things that matter to people. And the only way you can do that is by listening. And so for me, the ability to do that, whether as a candidate or in an official capacity, is just an incredible privilege. And I'm glad to be able to be with all of you tonight. Hopefully, for those of you I'm meeting for the first time, this will just be the first of many times that we get a chance to visit and get to know each other and get to work together. But you know, what I'm so excited about, and what I do tell my colleagues all the time, is we just have this incredibly special community. And you look at the demographics of Fort Bend County, most diverse county in the country, along with Houston, most diverse city in the country. This district, I think, may very well turn out to be the most diverse congressional district in the country. And it's such a representation of who we are, right? And I think we're at a really challenging time where we're having a fight about what our country is going to look like. And what I think our country should look like in the future is like this community. It should be a collaborative, connected group of people. So I think we have a great story to tell, and it is my privilege and an absolute pleasure to tell that story in Washington and to show people how we do things. So don't let me step on these.
Thank you.
To show them how we do things here, right? And it's by building bridges, making connections, working together, thinking creatively. I always say, we put a man on the moon from here, right? We can do anything. And so I think that kind of leadership we need to see in Washington, and it's my privilege to be able to do that, to bring that from this community because that's who we are, and to be able to share it with my colleagues and make sure that our values of inclusion, connection, collaboration, that those result in progress and equality and opportunity for all Americans. So I'm thrilled to be with you. I'm so grateful for the opportunity to visit with you all tonight, and I'm happy to take questions if you want me to, or
Please.
We can do that later.
Any question anyone has, please feel free to ask any question.
Can I I just want to make a comment, and please comment on that. I want this community to know that I know firsthand how effective her office is. We have great representation in Congress, especially from the Democratic Party that I belong to. I have personally privileged to know that there were at least 2 occasions where community wanted some action or somebody was in dire need of some prompt action, and your office came through. I think Aaron is responsible also for running a very well-oiled office, timely office, and I think you will find that this community will respond to you very well. You are gaining amazing diversity among your constituents, and I think it will add to what you have to say in DC on our behalf. So thank you for coming to Sugar Land.
Thank you so much. And I'm sure it will. I'm sure it will.
One thing I just realized that me and Zaftar both are on hat trick now, after today. And the reason I say that because if somebody stood out of the only people out of the Pakistani community for the first time for Sylvia Garcia, if I went over there to support her and we went, without any boundaries, we did fundraisers and everything. And the very first day and last day I saw Zaftar by my side. So, and today I see the same thing. So now we have to wait for the hat trick. So any question anyone has? Melissa?
I guess my question would be, as you grow into Fort Bend County, what sort of opportunities are you looking for so you can learn more about your constituency? I mean, I would imagine there's a lot of parallels between your current and then as it's grown, but what sort of opportunities are you looking for, and what can the people of Fort Bend County do to make you feel welcome and to make sure that you are properly representing them in Congress?
Thanks so much for that question. It's a great question because it really is, how do you do the job? How do you speak for about 750,000 people, right? You know that not everyone agrees on everything. We don't agree on everything in my own household of 2, right? So how can you get information? How can you know what are people's priorities? What are the things they're worried about? What are the things they're excited about? What are the things you need to know about? And the best way to do it is to have opportunities like this, to get to visit with people, to get to hear from you directly. And I'm looking for every opportunity I can get to engage with people who live here. And throughout the new district, as I was mentioning so there's a new district lines, and it is different pretty substantially. About 70% of the district is new to me. About 30% of the people will carry over from the last, from the existing congressional district. And that's in part because they moved it around and have several people will be in different districts. And so for me, some parts are more familiar than others. My old house that I used to live in is now in my district that it wasn't anymore. So I feel like I've got that blocked down. But I think, what I see is I really try to think about representing our entire community and really thinking about our region and our state and our country, obviously, because we're struggling with lots of different issues that really have national implications. And I do think, so even as I've been in this job, I've been doing lots of things that are hopefully, for the benefit of our entire region, whether it's some of the work I did on the transportation and infrastructure in my first term in Congress. I worked there on the project to authorize the widening and deepening of the Port of Houston, which will have huge implications, for our entire community, for our economy. But I think that, it is always a challenge, and I think the best thing for me is for people to give me the opportunity to hear from them. And I try to do that a lot of different ways. In my official office, I send out a weekly email, ask for feedback, take phone calls, take meetings, really try to just hear from people on a variety of issues. And then try to get out in the community as much as possible, going to community events, whether it's parades and festivals, and just a chance to see people and kind of meet people where they are. I appreciate that everyone made an effort to come here tonight. And it's really wonderful to have you host me and introduce me to so many friends. So any opportunities like that, I welcome the chance to come.
Yes, please.
So to educate those of us who are just learning more about you and your work, Fletcher said that you're not part of this area for voting purposes, and if we want to support you, we need to know what areas do you cover, number one, and number two, what can we do as part of my, for example, ethnocentric community? I'm Muslim, but we have a very large Muslim population in this area, and which areas cover our voter districts, because we have plenty of religious institutions, cultural institutions that we can invite you to. So can you educate us a little bit about that?
Sure, absolutely. And it's interesting because I don't think anyone would accuse the Texas legislature of drawing a logical sort of map. So you'll see the lines are really varied, and they probably make sense. But it's, one thing you can do that's really interesting. The Texas Tribune has a great link. In fact, I'm about to send it out to people. That you can type in your address and find out which district you're in, because it's not totally straight lines. But generally, the district will run sort of along the West Park Tollway to the Grand Parkway, and then kind of down inside the Grand Parkway. And then it snakes a little bit between me and Representative Nels and Representative Green in terms of kind of exactly where the lines are. But we have a lot of overlap. So some people who are in 22 now will move into 7, and then there are a lot of, as I view it, there are a lot of community groups and organizations that I'd love to get to know. The people who are going to different organizations, institutions, religious institutions will live all over the place, and so I'm happy to visit wherever and connect with people. In fact, I was just down here a few weeks ago for a tour, and I think that's been my experience, is that groups like that have a big reach.
When is the next election? What are we voting?
So there are a couple of elections, and hopefully you're hearing from people now, and some of you should be getting some mail from me. That'll be one way you know if you're in the district.
You're in the district or not.
It's March 1st is the primary election, And there are a lot of races. It's really important, for everybody to make their voice heard on March 1st. In fact, there are probably a number of people here who are on the ballot on March 1st, and that's the primary election day. I am very grateful that I'm not opposed in the election, so I'll be the only candidate on the ballot for Congressional District 7 in the primary election, but then in November, we will have the general election, and I know there are several Republicans running in the Republican primary to then appear on the ballot in November. So I don't know who I'll face in November, but there will be a Republican candidate, and last time there was also a Libertarian candidate on the ballot, so there'll be a few choices in November. But if I can just say for a second, I think these elections are so important for everyone to engage. Historically, the midterm elections have lower turnout than presidential elections. Member of Congress are up every 2 years. So, unlike the presidential elections every 4 years, we're up every 2 years. And so it's kind of a constant election cycle with, happening that often. But historically, midterms don't have as much turnout. And I think the stakes right now in our country are so incredibly high that everyone really needs to make their voice heard at the ballot box. I think it's really important, in my view, as a member of the House of Representatives, for the Democrats to hold on to the House of Representatives and work constructively with President Biden on advancing an agenda that helps address COVID. We've really worked hard to help advance the agenda that we set forward ourselves and also the president's agenda. And what we're seeing now from the Republicans is frankly not a lot of good ideas about constructive governance. What you're seeing is just a lot of things like what we saw in the legislature this section, and a lot of saying no. Not a lot of ideas about things that we can do that are going to help move the country forward. And I think that it's really important for people to engage in this cycle. I think there's kind of a historical sense that the party who's the party opposite of the president usually wins the midterm. And that could bring a lot of things to a halt in Congress. And I think that there's so much important work to do. We've done a lot of great things with the Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act. We just voted on another bill last week, the America Competes Act, which is a huge investment in science, and technology, and in American workers, making sure that we're dealing with some of the supply chain issues that everybody's experiencing in different ways right now, making sure that we're manufacturing semiconductors here at home, really putting money into our research enterprise, which is something I work on the Science, Space, and Technology Committee. And so there's really an emphasis on American manufacturing and all kinds of really important investments. Those kinds of things, we need to have a majority that's there to make things happen.
Okay, so on that, my last question, I promise.
Yeah,
You
sure.
said it's been redistricted,
Yep.
and that only 30% of the
About
previous
30%.
constituents you had that helped you win are now currently in district. So 70%
New
are
people.
brand new to you. So my question is, historically, what has that 70% been? Have they been Republican voters? What is the challenge that we're facing? How uphill of a battle is this? Or just depending, because Houston
Sure.
tends to be blue, and that's kind of unique in Texas. So I just want to ask
Sure.
so that we understand what kind of challenge you're facing and
Sure.
how we can support you better.
Thank you, and I appreciate the question. And of course, you never know, right? As a candidate, you can't take anything for granted. And I will backtrack back to my first election in 2018. I had lived in that district or around the district because the lines change, but for most of my life, and it had always been a Republican district. And as Dr. Chaudhry said, George H.W. Bush was the first person to hold that seat when it moved to Houston, and it had been Republican ever since. And at the time, I felt like our representative wasn't really reflecting the values of our community, and so I decided to challenge him. It was the first time I'd ever run for office of any kind. Fortunately, I had a great team to guide me along the way, but that was a historically Republican district, and it was considered a Republican district. But we mounted a great campaign, built a broad coalition of people across our community that share our values, and I was able to win, and I won by 5 points, which was really exciting. So, and it's all about building that coalition, right? And building a community of people who understand what we can do. So we need to do it here. The good news for you, you can't take anything for granted. That's the one thing I know. You cannot take anything for granted in this business. I think Rep. Reynolds will tell you that too. You just can't. But the way that the district has been drawn, and if you want to speak to this, you can too, historically, if you look at the trends of who's in the district now, how they would have voted, this is a district that President Biden would have won and is considered a little bit more democratic than the district that I was in. So if that helps. Now, I don't know that, we won't take anything for granted. We're knocking on doors. We are hopefully meeting folks wherever they are. We're sending mail, doing all kinds of things to talk to voters and talk to people in the community to make sure that they know that I'm excited about the opportunity to represent them and that I'm committed to representing them and being the voice of this community in Washington.
Wallace?
Yes, so one of the most important assets that we have in Portland County is our youth. And so I'm just curious, what are your plans, or what have you done previously and what will you continue to do to encourage engagement with the youth of Portland County?
That's such a great question, because I was on the phone with my niece, who is a freshman in college, on the way down here, telling her how much I needed her friends in her school to help another congressional candidate and engage and really see and believe that they are a part of this process and feel empowered rather than discouraged. And I think it's hugely important. So there are a lot of things that we've done kind of on the campaign side, having an intern program in all of the last election cycles to really engage. And RJ is leading that. RJ was here, he's in the back. He was leading our intern program. So we've really engaged with a lot of people on the campaign side. And then in my official capacity, I have interns in my office as well to help people kind of see the opportunities there. And we have a strong preference for interns from the district. And so that's a great opportunity. But I think more broadly, the question that I'm hearing you ask is, how do we get sort of youth engaged in the political process at a broad scale? And I think that it's something, I was just on a very long Zoom today that did end with President Obama, so it was pretty cool, talking about this very issue, because I think for so many of us, when we engage with younger people, we feel inspired and hopeful for the future. And I think that that's really what we want to cultivate. And I go right back to my experience as a teenager. As I said, when I put my name on the ballot a couple of years ago, having not done it before, I really thought back to my teenage years, and my sister and I were very politically active, and we were writing letters to our state reps, and we were doing all kinds of stuff. And what I think you learn is that it's really important what you're doing. It's really, you have the ability to influence what actually happens, but it can also be really fun to work with other people to make the world a better place, to make the world the one that you think it should be. And I think we're seeing that from youth right now. Coming, they engage with my office and they engage with members of Congress. I'm sure they engage in the legislature, whether they're coming up in buses to come advocate for a particular issue. It's something that I've been doing as a volunteer since I was a teenager. I've been a Planned Parenthood volunteer for many, many years, was on the board of directors of Planned Parenthood Gulf Coast. And I think it's really something that we have to do to help people understand their power and use it to organize their friends, their communities. And look, we have a really uphill battle here in Texas. We have seen what the most recent legislative session, despite the valiant efforts of many, including I saw Rep. Reynolds in Washington, really trying to make the case and effectively making the case to members of Congress from across the country about the threat to voting rights, about the voter suppression legislation in Texas. And look, we're seeing it, right? We're seeing an unprecedented number of ballots returned. I think I read today in Harris County, it's 40% of the ballots, the vote by mail ballots, are being returned because they're not completed accurately. You see all of these sort of things that might facially seem okay, but in practice are disenfranchising people. And so we have to make sure that we fight back against that kind of legislation, that we hold the majority in Congress, that we win the majority in the ledge, that we don't let those kinds of things that are meant to pull people apart and make them feel like they don't have a voice and a say. I think we have to fight back at that at every turn, and we have to do it in elections, and we have to do it with our legislation, and we can't rely on just one or the other. We have to do it all.
Just one more question.
Oh, okay.
Last question.
Yes.
While I'm very much a pro-immigrant, but what can be done about the lawlessness that's happening, on our borders?
Well,
and especially it affects, the people living in the South End, and it almost making it like unsafe, to live affluently like this, because of the lawlessness happening. It has increased in the past few years.
Well, and I know the sheriff's here. The sheriff's here tonight. And certainly a lot of folks here, across the community are worried about safety, want to make sure. And I think one of the most important things we can do is have an open dialogue with law enforcement.
I'm pro-immigration person, myself. But then there's something, that has to be a system where most of the people that come across the border, they're honest people wanting to make a better living. But along with that, some criminal elements also infiltrate. And unfortunately for us, so more, because we are in southern part of Texas, it's directly affecting us.
Well, I think it's important to distinguish between those things and to understand the criminal element versus the immigration issues. And the immigration system that we have is broken, and I think that is pretty clear. And I think that's something that in Congress we've been working to do, to have an overhaul. As many of you know, it's been years and years and years. President Bush tried to have bipartisan immigration reform. There was another effort 6 or 7 years ago, kind of with this bipartisan group trying to push immigration reform through the Senate. They were able to do it in the Senate, but not the House. Now you see it happening in the House, but not the Senate. We have passed several pieces of legislation, including a bill to protect the Dreamers, a bill to help protect farm workers, to give people legal status in the United States. And I think what I hear from law enforcement is that having people living in the shadows is one of the most dangerous things for our communities.
Definitely don't want.
So we need to really go to the root causes of the immigration problems, and also the root causes of why people, of course people will always want to immigrate to the United States, they have, but there are other reasons right now, whether people are fleeing dangerous situations. Certainly we're seeing it, in this last year with natural disasters, as well as instability and violence at home. And so it's an incredibly complex problem, and what we need to do is work together to find solutions so that people who want to immigrate to the United States have the opportunity to do so in a way that works. And also, people are entitled to present themselves for asylum at our borders. And so how do we make sure that our system is prepared for the number of people? How do we make sure that we are doing things? And it's really stalled in the Congress, and it's a huge failing of this Congress because there's so much support in our community and across the country to deal with these challenges. And it's bipartisan. I mean, at home, when I'm here, I hear from Republicans and Democrats that they want to see immigration reform, and they want to see us addressing the challenges that it means, whether it's for safety or whether it's for business. People who can't come here because they can't get a visa, or people who are living in the shadows, and that is not safe for our communities. And so we really need people in Congress who will be serious about solving the problem, not just talking about it. Thank you so much.
I have 1 minute allocation for 3 people, and so in 3 minutes we'll be done, inshallah. So I would like to introduce the people who don't know Pearl Warren. She's a nurse by training, and like I said, she's a cancer survivor. I would like to have her, along with her line of campaign of Congressman Fletcher, how she sees healthcare. I would like her to say in 1 minute, your views, please. Please, right.
No pressure.
Thank you, no pressure. Not expected, so thank you for listening to me. Being a cancer survivor and going through the healthcare system really is broken. Being a nurse, I've been in insurance, I've been working in the hospitals, I've done all of those things, and I had a hard time getting the care I needed. So what happens to all these people who don't have any knowledge or have any help to get those things taken care of? And I just feel like that is a very big problem in this country right now. Somehow we have to be able to work on it and deal with it. Many of you who are doctors are dealing with the same issues as well, trying to keep your practices going and seeing the patients coming and not being able to do anything. Along those lines, I'm just going to say that one of the companies that we do have, or businesses, should I say, is our Patient Benefit Foundation, which is a nonprofit that we have. And we provide care for patients and pay for their bills for elective surgeries. So that's something that I would like to kind of promote as well. But that's it.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
the second number I would like to request, because I received a call from Brian Middleton, our district attorney. He could not make it, and he personally asked me to convey his regards to you and his 100% support to you. But along the lines, Abraham Khwaja, if you could please step forward.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm going to be quick. I met Lizzie at the TPEC event we had at the Justice Center in Upper Bel Air Furnace. And I told her, there's people you have to meet in Sugar Land. I gave her my card and I gave her my number, if you remember. And I told her, there's a doctor that I want you to meet in Sugar Land that makes things happen. And now that you're part of, and you are my new Congresswoman. So I'm at Avalon at Telfair, next to Smart Financial Center, and I use that site. It's very easy. You put your address, and we are thrilled. But I wanted to highlight the closeness that we have here in Fort Bend County. We are close, as you see. You look in this room, you see the diversity. Dr. Chaudhry is one of the most generous people in the community. We consider him a leader. He doesn't talk much about himself, so I'm going to use 2 minutes to talk about him. He is on the board of Crime Stoppers. Think about that. This man is on the board of Crime Stoppers. He is on the board of Exposed Youth to Excellence program that Mr. Middleton started. See, he's the district attorney, but he decided that he wants to put effort in trying to prevent crime by giving disadvantaged youth an opportunity to actually succeed. And I think that program, to his vision, and Mr. Prestige, who made it happen financially for us. Without our commissioner's support, it's very impossible to get anything done. And we work together here, like I told you, like a family. And we are so happy to have you here. I thing I love most about Dr. Chaudhry is he got a brand new Corvette that I still haven't got to see. But, he honored his mother. And so when you see that respect, a man who's accomplished everything, he has accomplished everything. And it's not about what he has, it's about what he gives. And so I just want you to know, from me, I'm the first assistant district attorney. We have our sheriff here, we work hand in hand together on everything. But I want you to know from me, as a member of this community who keeps this community safe under the leadership of Brian Middleton, that he is a spokesman for all our community. If you need anything, please reach out to him. He knows who to reach, who to talk to, and he makes it happen. And he makes it happen selflessly. And it's an honor to be his friend. God bless you and thank you.
Before I invite the last gentleman to utilize 1 minute and make it from 1 minute to 2 minutes if he wishes to. But it's amazing thing that Pearl started this conversation. I was not going to bring it, but 2014, my mother was not having insurance resource. So she was new in the country and she was not properly screened, and she ended up in ICU for 21 days. She could have, if she was screened properly, for those who are physicians here, you guys know more than anyone else, that if that was caught, she could have gallbladder removed, but the stone impacted into the duct where it is not supposed to be. So we had to have the lab choline, which is the gallbladder removal, but because of the pancreatic enzymes so high, she was in danger. Her life was in danger. So my brother-in-law back there, he's sitting, and my sister, they were in New York at that time. They have moved recently over here a couple of years back. So that got me started thinking that, what about those people that have the same situation? She, thank God, she luckily survived, and I created a nonprofit organization, Patient Benefit Foundation. And I spoke with Pearl at that time. She's my co-founder on that, and another gentleman from the community. So we three people, we founded the organization. So I obviously had to put my first investment in there in terms of for the welfare of the people. So I donated $250,000. But at the same time, when I told that evening my mother that, hey, I wrote that check to our own nonprofit organization that we're going to be supporting. And we're going to be helping a lot of people with the elective surgeries. My mom said that, you have to put my equal share in there. So then the next day I contributed, and even in the last gala, if you remember, she contributed, heavily. So we are about giving back to the community, and that's why it is important for me to mention that that my organization is standing behind you for what you're doing in healthcare. And anyone, if you go on social media, you'll find out that how many people who were black, brown, green, blue, and white, we help them regardless of their age, regardless of their nationality or ethnic background. The only principle we kept is that you have to be legal in this country, because we didn't want it to fall into that controversy where we are pointed out by people or the organizations or anyone that we're helping illegal people over here. So, but there are, obviously ways to help them as well, but obviously I cannot help every single one in the country. But the most important point in this, I want to give you a lesson or a message to take home, that about 2018, I found out that there's a clip on YouTube. It's a 6-minute clip, and I'm happy to send the link to anyone. Dr. Danielle Martin, she came from Canada. She's the Senior Vice President in Canadian Healthcare System. So she testified in House of Representatives. And she pointed out a study, and at a later stage, I asked my staff to connect me with her. I spoke with her in Canada. So she sent me that study link as well. So that study proved in 2014, and she claimed that in the House of Representatives, that there are 45,000 people die every year in the United States for lack of elective surgery resource. So, and I started thinking back that how did I did this? Like, she spoke in 2014, I did not know about that. I created that organization, and I told her about that, and she wrote me a beautiful email, recognizing that she has gone through the testimonials and everything. So we're privileged and honored to help anyone, and we're out there unconditionally for whoever needs help. And at the last, I want to request Ron Randall, our state representative, and I'm honored, sir. Please.
Tremendous generosity, and because of Ibrahim's comments, I don't have much to say. I should have went before. That way I could have said it, and then you would have to debrief. I am just so grateful to see Congresswoman Fletcher, Lizzie, to be in Fort Bend now. I think that she has such a radiance and such a warm personality, a true champion, a fighter, someone who is very passionate about constituent services, and I know that Fort Bend is going to be greatly enriched by having you in this Fort Bend community. So we're so happy to welcome you, and we're so grateful that the redistricting process worked out that way. And I'm not going to be long. Let me just say this. There was a quote that you live by, you personify. All of us should be able to model this. And it goes to what you were just talking about. And this is Black History Month, so I'm going to give you a quote by Dr. Martin Luther King. He once stated that life's most urgent and persistent question is, what are you doing for others? Life's most urgent and persistent question is, what are you doing for others? Not what, Mahatma Gandhi did, or Rosa Parks, or your uncle, or your grandmother, or your father, or your sister, or your brother. What are you doing? Every one of us has a responsibility to pay it forward for the next generation. And I want to commend you for giving your time, your talent, and your treasure to pay it forward for the next generation, for those who are less fortunate, for those in underserved communities. Many of those benefactors will never even know you personally. And my faith teaches me that there's great rewards for people who like you. You're paying it forward. And I think all of us can model and learn from that and give back and be engaged, be involved, volunteer. Make sure you vote. Vote your values. Make sure that you are doing what you can to give back and make our communities the best place to live, work, and play. And that's what you have when you have the private sector and the government and all of us working together. It takes a village. The old African proverb. It truly takes a village for us to get it right. We can't do it in a silo. You know, she can't just do it by herself, or he can't do it by himself. It's all of us in it together. And the old adage my coach taught me, TEAM, team, together everyone achieves more. And so thank you for opening up your home as we welcome our wonderful Congresswoman into Fort Bend County. And we are the most diverse in the entire United States of America. And I know that she shares the same values that we share at Fort Bend. And that's why Commissioner Prestidge was early to endorse her, as I was, and KP George, and Mayor Sylvester Turner, because we knew of her great work. So we know that you're going to hit the ground running. We know that you're going to be a champion, not just in Harris County, but for Fort Bend, and we can call on you. And I truly believe that we have a great dynamic duo with you and Congressman Green working together to help us. And I know we have 22. So I'm only speaking my piece here, okay? But I'm so happy to welcome you, and I know that we look forward to working with you. And thank you again. Thank you so much.
So again, I'm honored that we had hosted our Honorable Congresswoman Lizzie Fletcher. Thank you so much for coming. And I am grateful of your kind words, State Representative.
It's all true.
And our future Congressman. So I could see that coming. Believe it or not, he has a speaking power that most of us wish to have. So thank you.